Hi, my name is Kelsey Smith. For my interview, I interviewed someone who I had made a connection with through a program called MEDS. It's a CNA program, and they help lead individuals through the nursing program. The person who I interviewed, her name is Demi Downs, and she's currently a CNA, which, for those who don't know exactly what that is, it's a certified nursing assistant. She is currently working on the pulmonary unit at St. Luke's. The location is at the Plaza. I have some notes here, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at from the interview that I did with her. So as I begin, some of the questions that I asked her, I'm just going to start by saying I was really impressed with her answers. She was very thorough with how she was expressing how important it is to be a leader, especially when working in healthcare. So with the first question that I asked her, so she let me know that she's a nursing assistant. She's also in nursing school through St. Luke's, and she will be graduating in May. So she's had a lot of experience working in healthcare. She has worked for many years, and so she's soon to be working also on the pulmonary unit as a full-time nurse. So she had some really good key points that I took away from our interview. So with the first question that she answered for me, was what led you to choose to become involved with your current leadership role? So she had mentioned that she is really big on wanting to make sure things get done and they get done in the right way. It's extremely important when working in healthcare that things are done a certain way because there is a reason for why they are a certain way. She also mentioned having an end goal, so seeing the vision of what you want to happen is very important, which is something that we have talked about throughout this semester. Being having that vision of your end goal is important because you are working every day towards that goal. So making sure every day there's a new step towards how you're going to accomplish the goal. So she mentioned that several times, so I know that that is something really important, and we've also learned that throughout this semester so far. Making sure you are really involved with the area that you're working with. So since she is on the pulmonary unit, that is her main goal, and that is what she's working on. So if she has a project or a patient that she is training somebody to work with, it is very important to make sure you're being a leader. You're somebody that is easy to communicate with and that you are communicating well. Making sure that you are on top of your P's and Q's with how you are training somebody is so important. Making sure that they know exactly what they're doing and that there shouldn't be any gray area of getting things done like late, making sure you are not lazy, making sure you are on top of your stuff while you are working. A piece of advice that she told me, which was something I really have thought about since the interview, was having a plan, which is something we've also talked about, but also knowing your audience. It's very important to know who you're talking to. There are leaders all over the world, but each leader is a part of a different group. So in her experience as a leader at St. Luke's, she mentioned that it is very important knowing your audience. Each patient is going to be different. Each family is going to be different. So making sure that you communicate in the best possible way to that patient, to that family, to your boss, to your coworkers is so important. So that is something that she mentioned. And as a leader in any aspect, it's very important to make sure you know who you're talking to. If you're talking with somebody who doesn't necessarily speak English, it's important to make sure you're overly communicating to them, making sure they understand the right medicines to take, the right time to take them. That is extremely important. So I'm really glad she mentioned that. Knowing how to communicate is also something that she talked about, making sure you are saying things in an appropriate way, making sure if you're working with somebody who is a little bit behind, making sure you take those extra steps to make sure that they can move forward and be on the same page with everybody in a group. There's a lot of group work in healthcare. You're not always just by yourself working. So making sure you're communicating to every single person in your group, as well as your boss, again, the patient, the patient's family, everybody should be on the same page. And if you're the one leading that, you need to be able to be comfortable enough for people to come up to you and ask questions, and you need to know what those answers will be. And if you don't know the answers, you need to make sure that you're talking to the right people to get the right answers. So being approachable is another thing she mentioned. Being comfortable is what I just talked about. So being approachable is kind of the same thing, just making sure that people aren't scared of you. Sometimes being a leader, you can be intimidating, so making sure that you are not intimidating, but still being on top of your stuff, making sure you know what you're talking about, but people aren't afraid to come up to you. So when I talked to her, I was really interested in that aspect, because that is something we've also talked about. And so whether you're working in healthcare or not, it is very important to be approachable when you're working at your job, and making sure people know that they can come talk to you about anything that has to do with your job. Another question that I asked her was, what skills, perspective, or attributes do you see as being critical for success in your particular leadership role? She mentioned making sure everybody has equal parts. So if you're working in a group, it's really important to make sure that you are giving solid examples. So when people are coming up to you, you can give them a reference. So this is an example of something that I dealt with when I was going through school and all that. So that is something I also thought was really important to note through this presentation. Lastly, this other question that she mentioned was, what are the most difficult or frustrating aspects of your leadership role? And I'm sure with most leaders, there are times when people aren't necessarily doing their job. So there is room for picking up slack. So sometimes as a leader, you do have to pick up the slack, because if it is your name on it, you're wanting to make sure that your patient is getting the best care. So sometimes you do have to pick up for other people, but making sure you communicate that next time that person needs to step up, do their part. It's really important to reiterate that to other people, especially when working in a group, like I mentioned. And what do you do to continue and develop as a leader? Because just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're done being a leader. There's always room to grow. There's always room to learn. So she had mentioned getting out of your comfort zone, and I thought that was really important. Making sure that you are constantly growing. It's important to continue to learn more. Especially in the healthcare world, there's always new things to learn, but making sure you do it the right way and are teaching it the right way is what is most important. So she also is a nursing student, so I thought that was something that I can't imagine doing, being a full-time certified nursing assistant and also being in nursing school, because I know a lot of us that are in the healthcare field, we know nursing school is extremely hard and it's time-consuming. So she is a great leader. From what I have learned from her throughout this interview, she's an amazing leader, both in nursing school and at her job. Her whole life really revolves around healthcare. So being organized, maintaining your composure in hard times is really important. So that is one of the key points I took away from my interview with her. Her leadership style I loved. She talked about how organized she was. And if you're not on top of your stuff and you're not organized, you're not going to get anything done. So making sure your lifestyle is organized, it all works as one. And she's a leader in her job and outside of her job, and that's something that most leaders are. You're really not just a leader in one aspect. If you're a leader, you're gonna be like that in all aspects of your life. So being prepared, being ready, making sure people are comfortable to talk to you, and making sure you communicate to people are the main things that I took away from my interview with her. Again, it was I learned so much from her, and I'm glad that I was able to have these conversations with her, and I definitely have learned more. It puts it in perspective of everything that we've learned so far in this class. She really reiterated that it is important and that these are things to look out for while becoming a leader. And I was grateful to be able to interview her. I'm glad I had this opportunity. Thank you.